Recording.
All right, so it is 5:30 and call to order. We're missing Kim and Danielle at the moment, but we do have a quorum, so we can get going and hopefully they'll join us. And first item on the agenda is public comment and maybe any additions to the agenda we might have.
No public?
No public?
No public.
All right.
Yeah, no.
So up next is the minutes from last month, which was April 9th. We had a chance to look at those.
Here we go.
We're about to. That looks nice.
These I feel like these auto backgrounds always get comments now too. Like it's
Yeah.
not. I just think it's a picture.
Yeah, really, how'd you like the castle?
All right.
Dave's weekend excursion.
April 9th, we were visited by Professor Tony D'Amato. I provided the Catamount Outdoor Family Center reading notes from Amanda. And did a quick check-in on the upcoming events in the bird walks and volunteer events kicking off.
I noticed some bluebirds on the boxes. I thought that was nice. Made me think
Oh
of
yeah.
the work they're doing and talked about here.
Yeah, they're out there.
I assume they maintain them, otherwise the bluebirds moved in and they weren't ready.
That's great. They're bluebirds is they're targeting bluebirds. They're always trying. I mean,
Yeah.
you know better than I do, but we're always trying to encourage more bluebirds and fewer house wrens, right?
Yeah, there's gonna be I guess you're gonna have a discussion with Terry tomorrow, I believe, about relocating some boxes, or maybe you don't know that yet.
I don't know that yet, but
It's on her agenda.
Perfect.
Yeah, some of the boxes that I look at are always house wrens, which
Mm.
are very territorial and they kind of push out bluebirds and
Mm.
tree swallows and things like that. So she wants to try to move them to a different habitat.
Sounds good.
All set?
Move to approve.
All right.
You wanna do it?
I'll second.
All right. Any opposed? I don't think so. All right, so that is approved. And next item on the agenda is John and the Outdoor Family Center.
The network is largely open again. We still have our historically wet trails like Balsams, Upper Night and Skidway that are closed, but all the race courses are marked and open, and and everything on the south side behind the McCulloughs is open too. We hosted our second annual gravel ride and our third annual Maddie's Jaunt on May 2nd. So the event is a UVM ROTC benefit event, 5K for a student who died a few years ago, and we've been able to host it basically because students step up and pay for it on their own and sign the contract on their own, based on UVM and the town's disconnect on contracts and insurance. So that is something that's being worked on, but it still affects the events like this, and almost canceled them again this year. And let's see, we also held our first coach training this past weekend, and we invited 45 camp kids for a free bike clinic. And it was really fun to have that many kids out and really get a good chance to practice with real life situations. Camp sales are ahead of last year's totals already, and we're really excited for camp to start in a little over a month right now. Let's see, we're continuing to work to actually milestone. The wetlands permit has been submitted. That's a really big step forward for all of us to get past that one. And is now in the review process. I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything, Dave?
No, for Act 250? Oh,
On
wetlands.
wetlands.
No, I haven't heard anything since they marked it as complete. It's like their first step, that mark it as administratively complete, and then it moves over to technical review. And then usually there's a big gap in between of just waiting for them to get to the review. And the hope is that, we've done all the pre-homework on this project. We've been in close communication with Tina Heath, the district ecologist, so she knows what to expect. And, once it's able to work in her queue, it'll be really fast. So, that's the hope, and yeah, it's good progress.
Act 250 is also really close, and we're excited to cross that bridge very soon too. We to get back to our fun that's going on too. Our race series just kicked off this week with pretty solid growth in series registrations year to year. We're not expecting this. We had 260% growth in the running and an even larger one in mountain biking. But I think people just registered much earlier this year. Either way, we had a great race on both Tuesday and Wednesday, and our Monday and Thursday night rides are also happening, and we have Andy's Trail Work series is just about to finish up, but he continues to work with a lot of businesses in the area. Champlain College has had staff out all week, and dealer.com also sends folks out. Lots of other businesses and the Cub Scouts also come out and help with trail maintenance. The update on the new building is that we are currently working to resolve the wastewater situation, and then also for us to share our business plan and contingency plans with the town, and that's a lot. So there's more to say, but we don't need to go any further right now. And good to be back. It's been a couple of months, I think, since I've been at the meeting. So anyway, and good to see Kim again today.
Yeah, nice to see you for the second time.
John, just out of curiosity, do you track residency of the people who register for especially seasonal tickets, I guess season?
Yeah, but we have addresses for everybody. Sure. Yep.
It'd be interesting to know how many Williston residents versus non-residents, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with that data. I just think it'd be interesting to have. It'd be interesting to me just to know how many Williston residents we have. That's kind of the question that I'd be interested in.
Yeah, it would be cool to see that across, like, I'm thinking like summer camps and childcare, but like that's the thing that like keeps coming into my head is like, how many people are using Catamount as childcare? Because I'm using Catamount.
Okay, but you don't get the addresses, no carpooling.
Yeah. I don't have to carpool, but yeah.
I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't share that info.
Activated.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. No rush on it. That could be interesting to have.
Okay.
Maybe a budget time when you have to talk to the select board about money.
Any other questions or comments for John? All right, thanks for the update. And next item on the agenda is upcoming events and use requests. Don't believe there were any?
Or none, did that last week.
Hey, we're cruising.
Last month.
Sailing
I
along.
was like, what did I?
All right, so next on the agenda is the framework, governance framework memo for the committee. We've been working on that for some time now and just like to, I guess, put it out there and see if there are any questions, comments, concerns about that before we approve it.
I have two, one. It's just sort of technical, and one's not, the third page, delegated to town staff. Down says when funding. Says when funding is allocated by the select board for stewardship or programmatic, the committee may recommend priorities and projects. I think that should be will. I don't know who else would recommend it, so. I know things like this, you tend to not say must, but I think will is appropriate.
And this is under the delegated to town staff section.
Yeah, it's like well, if you count the bullet points as the first paragraph, it's the fourth paragraph.
Uh,
I am fine with that edit. And I'm wondering if there's like what do we have? Rules about language consistency, like when we wrote the management plan, we made everything be shall for legal reasons. Do we need to?
I would say this isn't really a legal
Yeah.
document, so.
Yeah, I'd say this is more like policy guidelines.
Yeah.
For, it's, I mean. The documentation for Catamount, you all know, is very complicated, so in terms of. A useful policy document for this committee, that's kind of the niche that this fits into, because it kind of stacks on top of the formal charge, which is approved to the select board. Or was approved by the select board. So. I think that any language changes you think would be helpful, I would almost view this through the lens of. You know, it's been 3 years and you're looking back and you're saying, you know,
Yeah.
I really need to get refreshed, like, what did we settle on? And you're looking to this to kind of refresh what you decided on it and how the committee came to these decision making guidelines. And also for somebody new who's coming on and, you know, look at it with that lens, someone brand new to the committee and you're trying to get them to understand how you've decided to go about enacting that charge. Really, that's kind of what this is.
In that case, I think will is more precise and helpful.
Okay. I've made that change.
And then now that we've just decided this is not a legal document. Something that falls in.
Does that mean you have less changes or more?
I have one more,
Uh-huh.
and this, just because it came, and I can't remember what, somewhere along here it was, it's the use of capital town, the capital T town, and I just got a little, but somewhere, and I can't remember which one it was, not what.
Oh,
Town.
here, and
Well, town.
applicable town
town.
policies,
Town.
yeah.
Well,
couple
that's,
places.
yeah, that's probably just that town policies, but it's like the town will do this, or the town will make decisions, and then in some places it says the select board and the town, sometimes it says select board and town staff, and so I was just kind of wondering if we define town, because I think what caused me to look at it twice was something about that the town will make decisions about contracts, and technically the select board would do that,
Yeah.
you know? So then I got into, well, do we want to make it select board? It's like, oh, the purpose of this document is not really to decide what's Eric's job and what's the select board's job. That's sort of outside, so.
Right,
So if we define town as sort of the official instrument of town government, you know, then we just
Meaning the
get rid of
select
select.
board?
Or just not be specific. It doesn't matter to this committee. It's just not us, you know.
I guess my thought is like town is not people. It's sort of broad. I don't know, when you're town, I think, you know, it's like the town of Williston.
Mhm.
Like the town of Williston decided. You have to sort of translate to like, well, who is that?
Right.
Is it the town staff or is it the select board? I think it's always one or the other of those two.
Right, I
Or
think
residents.
that's a useful distinction. Gene, I'm wondering, is it this sentence here? procurement, contracting, legal authority remain with the town and select board.
Well, that one it says both, so you kind of be okay with me with there, but there's someplace else where
It's
it's
at the
just.
bottom.
But that should say town staff.
There's also
not
a
select.
spot on page
Oh.
2 that says town staff, partners, contractors, or volunteers operating under town direction, like
Yeah, so it kind of like town staff kind of meant to me. Townspeople, yeah, David. Oh, excuse me, or, some.
Town managers.
or administrative funds,
Next
procurement,
section.
contracting, and payment authority remain with the town.
I think that's probably the one
Under-
that's probably the one that got me, where was that?
Yeah.
That's about what, right above,
Page 3, right above partners.
yeah,
I think you could, I just did like control F town and like somebody could read through and be like everywhere that appears, like put a word, make sure there's a specific word after town what, now that I'm looking at it, when you say a word over and over again, you're like, that now that word's.
It's a lot,
weird
yeah.
to me.
Yes, it is a weird.
Like, is that actually how we spell town? I think there are like a couple of places where we could either put staff or like rules or. Like under partners, partner organizations operate in coordination with the town, but are not governed by the committee in coordination with town staff. I don't know.
I mean, it is a really good point because you are also an extension of the town.
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Either keep it vague if it doesn't matter or specify.
Yeah.
Town staff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and don't get into whether or not it's the select board's job
Right.
or the town manager's job, because that's outside of the point
Right.
of this document, so.
Yeah, it's a good point.
You could start at the beginning, you could say capital town T in this document refers to the town manager's
Yeah.
office
that's
or,
the slickest.
or the
solution.
select board,
Yeah.
or,
That's probably the simplest.
or and the select board, right? And
Yeah.
just, and then you just have to make sure that everywhere that it says capital T, town, except for capital, but town actually means the manager's office and the select board.
As opposed to the mail, as opposed to the
So we're looking at a footnote.
property.
Yeah,
For
usually
clarification.
put the definitions at the top, just to, or the first time you use it, you say town, I've seen that in legal documents too, which is that's not trends that.
Okay.
Um,
So we're referring to town staff. And select
well,
board.
town staff could be town staff, that's fair.
Lowercase t.
Yeah,
Town staff.
Town staff. Yeah, because some of these are really are, like, we're not asking the select board to take care of the mowing, but. Sorry, I'm not actually, not really doing mowing either, but. Yes, so that was just my thought, and you know what, given that we've had this on the agenda like 17 times, I would be okay with. With us approving it,
Somebody else.
Yeah. Allowing Drew and David to make the corrections on clarifying for 10.
Okay.
Approved
Second.
with.
Are there any other comments
I
or
had,
questions?
yeah, I had an edit and look, it's in my drafts and I never sent it to you. I was like, Drew never responded to me. Yeah.
That Drew.
So on this first paragraph in the individual members initiative. It just reads to me, individual committee members may. Independently initiate. Projects at Catamount that further the community objectives, provided that they're consistent with these things. So it just feels like there's this special privilege for committee members to. Do whatever they see fit that advances whatever they deem to advance things. I don't think we
I didn't
need
read it
that.
that way at all, but you're right, I think.
But when if I read that, I can be like, oh man, I'm on the committee, I get a special privilege, I can do whatever I want out there, as long as I think it advances priorities, like there's no approval, there's no under the guidance of.
Mhm.
It
We
just
could
sounds
just
like I can do whatever I want.
Strike or participate in may, or how about propose? What if we like,
And what were we trying to, I think we were trying to get with this, like the original intent was like,
bird boxes and.
It's not really something that we discussed
oh,
in this meeting. It's never really been brought to a conversation here.
this paragraph.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I don't think we ever got far enough in our discussions. I don't think we've gone through the document.
What was your
Yeah.
intent when you wrote it, do you remember?
Basically, you know, Terry, for example, when she was part of the committee, initiated the bird box
That's what I was thinking.
activity, and so that's
Yeah.
kind of what I had in mind when
Yeah.
I put that in there, that. You know, it's not our obligation to do these things, but should anyone wanna take something like that on,
They're not precluded.
so long as it's within the bounds of our. Our documents,
And I think
we
it
can do
needs-
that.
I think in coordination. With the committee, like that would be the
Right.
important thing, like if you woke up tomorrow and there was like all these bat. Dwelling thingy hanging all over the place.
If
you're
it
like,
took the bats off the darn bridge that we can't repair because of the dark.
Oh, great, okay.
So no, Jean was doing it.
But, you know, and we'd say like, where are all these bad things come from? Oh, well, Jean thought it would be a good idea, so she just went and did it. Like, I think we'd want it to at least, so if we add something like in coordination.
Well, are we trying to say that it's okay for us to do this in court, or are we just saying like any other citizen can propose?
Propose.
Yeah, I mean, any, to me, this is like a committee member can act as an individual citizen.
Right,
And propose and lead. Programs or thingy-dingies at Catamount.
right.
That our committee says are good. I mean, like the Terry example is perfect, like.
That's exactly what I was thinking, is like, and you had, maybe we didn't talk about this specific paragraph, but you had brought up that like you didn't wanna lose. The opportunity for people that it had been so long, there were individual stewardship initiatives.
Right.
So that, to me, that speaks to that conversation. Yeah, I wonder if we just change it to propose.
Yeah,
Does that solve the
Well, I think the
problem?
way, I think that could probably work. I also like the way Hans phrased it with, you know, just committee members may act as.
As citizens.
Yeah,
Like
as
propose.
citizens, or maybe a combination of the
Yeah.
two, like. To propose and lead projects, you know, in coordination with the, committee, whatever.
Yeah,
yeah. And what about non-residents? I don't see a problem with that either. Or is there a problem
But
with
they
that?
wouldn't be on the committee,
yeah,
and this is a
Oh,
committee document.
Well, I was just thinking more broadly, like if a non-resident came and said, I wanna do bat boxes.
well, that's already the
Yeah.
case, right? Like, that's like,
That'd be the case, yeah, I don't
That-
think there's any,
Oh, I see.
in fact, the. You know, the like conservation baseline documents in some of the grants, and maybe even in the VLT easement stipulate that. The town can't, can't create tiered.
yeah, that's in Forest Service.
Tiered access
Yeah.
based on
Oh,
residency.
uh-huh.
There actually is, I think Land and Water Conservation Fund says they define it, you know, you could. Charge a slight premium for out of town or something like that, but when taken in whole, it just messier. It's much easier to just treat everyone the same, and I think that's more consistent with. Conservation documents.
So that's helpful. We don't need to say what regular residents can do, because that's not the point of this document. This is just clarifying. Committee members can go beyond regular committee duties. To propose and. Do these things.
Yeah.
Right,
Now that we have
Coordination.
multiple changes, should we go ahead and vote on this next week after we? Really quick, kind of
It's
see this,
worth
look
having
at it.
edits.
Yeah,
I feel like the second line there, the actions taken in this capacity, like we actually don't really want anybody taking actions that the committee hasn't
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um,
Strike that sentence too.
heard
oh, I
about,
thought they
right?
were saying like if Jean decided that what she really needs to do is, you know, and I come to the committee and it's like, we're gonna plant willows. You know, and I've got a great idea about planting willows, you guys say, wow, willows, those are cool, you guys can go ahead and plant willows, and then all of a sudden become a committee action. That's what I did that to me, it's like, this is
Mhm.
a resident who came to us with an idea that got all the approvals and did it,
Yeah.
it's not the committee planting willows.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the way I read that.
yeah,
You know, useful aspect of this sentence would be like, just because a committee member starts a pet project. It doesn't become a duty of the
committee's
committee to
responsibility, yeah,
sustain it.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
The way of getting it.
Does it need to be rephrased then, or?
Yeah, I think so, because like just replaced, because currently it reads like. If Jean goes and plants willows, don't blame the CCF committee.
yeah,
That's.
I actually think looking closer, I think it starts fine, I think independently initiate is the tricky bit. That's the part that makes it sound
That's
like
what I
a
think should
committee member
get,
can
Yeah.
just go do what they want.
I just think that whole independently initiate
So maybe
or participate should get, should be striked, stricken. Stricken with grief. Then replaced with like proposed in collaboration or like proposed to the committee or something like
Yeah.
that.
I agree with that.
And then I think it's okay, and then like that middle sentence could be like. Maybe that middle sentence is fine.
And then maybe you don't need the last sentence.
Yeah, I think the last two sentences are just are trying to get at like. Somebody's individual initiative, which we don't wanna say that, but like, if. Terry decided to not do bird boxes anymore, it doesn't fall on our committee to sustain it. I mean, it might be in our best interest to find another resident who wants to continue it. But we don't have to
Right.
become like the bird box maintainers. Like, that's not, we're kind of trying to clarify what the committee's responsible for. Like, we're not responsible to pick up everybody's projects if they drop them.
I'd be willing to take a stab at rewriting this if we're going in circles here.
Okay.
Drew, if you got
Yeah,
it.
subcommittee.
Whichever. Subcommittee.
All right.
Two. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds good. I'll share the document with you in a revisable format.
It cracks me up that subcommittee is two people.
Is,
Do you know how hard that is sometimes? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
would you like a Word document or do you want to share the Google Doc?
Are you
What's your?
in one box with me? Google Doc might be better. Do you use
Okay.
Google Docs?
I do.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay, so we're going to hold off on approving that. We were also.
But now
going-
we've all read it carefully. We had a good discussion as opposed to those times where it's like, oh crap, I meant to read that.
So we were also going to potentially discuss whether or not. Based on the completion of this document, we wanted to have a conversation about revising the committee size. Frequency of meetings, et cetera. Do you want to do that now, or is that something that we? Should hold off on until we complete maybe some of the other exercises, which we haven't gone through yet, but I kind of. Took the, I don't know if everybody's looked at this, but there's a lot in it, but kind of taking the governance structure. Or our governance
Anybody wants to
obligations.
tape some sheet together, I'll do it.
That. So just pull that up. And create a work plan is kind of what I was trying to get at, which might. Advise the structure of the committee, how frequently we meet, et cetera. So I think we can have a quick conversation about whether or not we wanna hold off on that or. Move forward with that conversation now. Do we need more information, I guess, to have that conversation?
As the representative member of Recreation Committee, and I go to our committee meetings, I can't really tell you, I can't come up with many things that I feel like is relevant to Parks and Rec from our conversations here. Occasionally, but it doesn't. I feel like I'm more here as a person who's interested in the forest than a representative of the committee, except for like a little bit, maybe like 5 minutes every 6 meetings. So I
It's
have
so
been
funny because
struggling.
there's so much recreation.
So much recreation, but nothing that
Right.
goes with the recreation and parks firm.
So how many people should we have on this committee at a minimum? Is this the minimum 5, we think, or?
Yeah, and then you can't have, a subcommittee at all if you go any smaller.
So is there, is it more applicable to have somebody from the conservation committee?
That's
Another member of the
Okay.
public, I guess, is all we do. 3 members of public, conservation and select board, or you don't wanna do the same.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where this whole thing started, was we were sitting around talking, having multiple meetings about mowing, and it's like. This is the only committee that requires a select board member to sit on it,
Right.
and frankly. When I say I'm done with it, there's no one else who wants to do it, so.
Ditto.
Yeah, so, I volunteered put my hand up for one more year, so I'm good until next March. It was just in the euphoria of being reelected. I don't know what I was thinking.
I did sign a sheet of paper.
That's right, yeah.
Congratulations.
It was a big win.
Yeah.
I think the library got more votes, but no one's recalled me, so. So I don't, so I think in reality, the chances of finding a select board member who's willing to put in the time and energy of a whole 20% of the board, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
20% of this committee will be tough. But on the other hand, since I volunteered to stick around for a while, you know, I do think that kind of working through this work that we started, and so I had to print it out because it's like, yeah, but how often are we gonna do that action? Oh, yeah, you put that in the win. You know, so you could kind of lay out a plan, and then it could be more interesting to select board member perhaps, or somebody else might be more interested in it, or we might really focus in that maybe we do need to be more hands-on, in which case we definitely don't want one, so. I would be, from my position, my perspective, I'd be okay with letting this sit until, you know, next winter. But you probably need to make a decision before March next year.
Well, maybe we should talk about it in an ongoing way, so that we're not like making a panic decision. I'm just opening like. Remember a while ago, I showed you all like how other towns
Mhm.
govern town forests, and I wonder, like, I'm not like super prepared to.
Well, that's getting back to doing our whole
Right,
project, right?
like, could we? Spend time on this in this meeting, like, I don't know, charting out what we think we would need to do. Like, if we didn't have a select board member and we didn't have a member from rec, in my head, I'm like, is it just conservation commission then?
That'd be my question to you, is like, how helpful in your experience, do you think it's been to be on both? And like, could, for example, the staff liaison be the go-between between the two committees, or have you felt like it's really been important to have that link?
I don't know if I think it's really important to have that link. So much as I feel like, is this just conservation commission's purview?
Like dissolve the CCF.
Yeah,
just roll it.
yeah, that, and my counter argument to myself in my head is that like, the Conservation Commission doesn't have time for that, which was the original reason for
Right.
creating this committee in the first place. But it's just this funny situation where I feel like in most towns, that's what happens. Conservation Commission oversees it, and it does feel very much like the purview, it's just an outsized amount of time and energy,
Yeah.
and I don't know how to deal with that.
That's a great point. I think you're right that it is the purview, and I would agree with your assessment that the CC doesn't have the capacity to do what this committee does.
Right.
Part of which is that not all CCs are involved in development review in their towns.
Yeah,
In Williston's
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
involved
and that's so much of
in
it.
what is a fairly
That I gave him, yeah.
a fairly detailed and involved
Right.
process if you compare Williston's development review to other towns. So in that respect, I think that's one of the pieces that may make Wilson situational different, and one of the reasons I think there's benefit in having a standalone town forest committee, at least at the very least through the
Rewrite.
rewrite of the
Yeah.
project, you
Yeah.
discuss if you want, but
Or else it would have to like really shrink. Like it would have to be more of like the way that we handle like Mud Pond. The management plan needs an update, and so we're like paying attention to that for like these 2 meetings in that 1 year where there's a plan update,
Yeah.
right? And occasionally when fellowship comes to ask us if they can, I don't know.
but the downside of that is every time I look back at those plans, I'm like, oh gosh, who's implementing this? And the answer is no
No
one.
one, yeah. But
Yeah,
we have an outdoor, we have a nonprofit, but I mean, kind of a little bit fellowship is implementing part of that
At Country Park.
at Mud Pond, yeah, well, yeah, Country Park, not it. Anyway, that is like my thinking is like, I don't know how to sort of bring those two realities together, which is it does feel like. Conservation Commission purview and Conservation Commission, like we always go over and we already meet twice a month.
I mean, I would think that that doing the work of.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
And then she comes to this.
Oh my gosh, yeah, 3.
I mean, I think if we work out, if we
I
get
like it as service on my workload.
there you go. If we get ourselves back to finishing this structure that we started on what really is the purpose, and Drew's kind of penciling in, well, you wanna do this twice a year, you wanna do this once a year, you can kind of like lay that out in a work plan.
Yeah.
It would be either, yes, this is an interesting amount of work that people who love the forest should dig into at least once a month, versus, yeah, without much trouble, this stuff could become outdoor family center, and this stuff could become policy village that you guys could look at twice a year.
Yeah.
So, but it might become more clear as we work through all those documents. And
I mean, I think at least half our time feels like it's around like our existential crisis.
Exactly.
So like, once we're past that, and I agree, this is good, yeah, then we could literally just meet every 2 months.
Well, that's where I was going at the beginning, but
Right,
then
order.
I think there was some really good questions about, like I was saying, like, well, what do we have to do about public access? Well, it's open, so we're done. And then I think you brought up, or maybe Danielle brought up, it's like, yeah, but are we doing enough to get people access to it? And so, but that's
Yeah,
kind of to focus down to like, are there metrics we should look at every year? That was your point, right? Is there something we should check once in a while? But I can't even just wrap my arms around the whole, what we possibly should be doing and how often yet. So when we get to there, might be more clear.
I fielded a question just last week from a resident that was under the impression that Catamount was still a private place.
Right,
Yeah,
what did you say?
I said, it's not. You should go right away. Go talk to
Wait,
go to the hub and talk to the staff, and they're great people, and they'll tell you where to go.
If they thought it was private, I'm so curious, why did they reach out to you? Like,
They responded to Todd, as part of the,
the
rec,
Parks and
rec plan.
master plan.
master plan
Oh.
process, and he sent them my way.
got it. Yeah, got it.
It's not too uncommon. I tell people like, oh no, you can run and walk there for free. Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it takes a long time.
I feel like it's
Generation.
buried in the website and it's buried on the signage, and it's very hard to see that it is a free access.
Was it like the Outdoor Family Center website?
Yeah.
Oh.
Danielle, I'm kind of actually kind of
Yeah,
interested in,
that
and I'm
lens.
not putting this as your problem, but it is. I think it's a problem that the rec department and the outdoor family and the forest don't. Overlap.
It's a broader, I think, just like, it's not, it's like broader to, I think, like all of our, like so much of the conservation parks and protected areas in town have rec opportunities, and we don't interface with parks and rec, and
Yeah.
it's super siloed, and like, it's a symptom of the field broadly,
Mhm.
of like, I don't know, in general. I would say like our majors, parks, rec and tourism, as if they are buckets that you're either in or out of,
Right.
which is not true.
Well, my vote would be that we're not at a point to dive into that
Mm.
until we do this other work.
See, clearly a select board member is useful on this committee.
We make a lot of decisions really fast.
And I do think that when Jeff was on the committee, he also had knowledge about just town work, how the management of the town works.
Yeah.
That
No,
was
I'm sure it's
helpful,
super
and
helpful.
also like pointing us into like what is important for us to focus on.
Yes, but there was somebody on your committee the year before I started.
Right. But that was not helpful.
Right, and then you're missing a whole board member, right?
On
Your whole
this-
committee meeting.
And that was, I think that may be why we're still in an existential crisis though, because we also had
A lot of people.
a lot of people leave.
Yeah.
Jeff also
Okay.
was in like an interesting like situation.
Because he lives on Cooter.
Right, yeah, like that provided a lot of.
Yeah.
Right, that was before me, but I just happened to, yeah.
I think, yeah, also just looking at time, I think this is really good conversation, and yeah, maybe it makes sense to carry it forward and kind of continue to try the decision on. My comment on it would be, I would think that you could sort of do one of two things. You could either just strike those membership requirements and with the understanding as a board that those are still partnerships that need to be maintained.
Yeah,
You may need to bring in a select board member and you bring in a recreation member. Alternatively, you could think about upping the membership to 7, so there's more space for, general community volunteers. And in that case, if you had a vacancy in one of these committees, you could actually accommodate that potentially. As opposed to right now, that it would be catastrophic for
Right.
for such a small.
Right, so you could still have a select board member, but if you had 7 members, that person couldn't come every month, it wouldn't be
Right.
quite as
right.
Yeah,
impactful, that's.
Cause you need
That's cool.
5, or what do you need for
You
a
need a
quorum?
quorum.
you need a
Three.
quorum right
Three
now,
or
it's
four?
just. Right now,
What is it?
quorum's 3.
It just has to be
Majority.
like majority.
Okay.
So the more people you have,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
So you're on the odd number.
Right.
So if you had 7 people, but 5 of them were general public, or not, 4 of them were general public and kind of more. Potentially more available or, didn't have these other responsibilities, it might be easier to kind of have that core. But
Are we able to adjust this, the membership, or is that something?
the select board needs to approve it, but you can absolutely propose a charter change, go through Eric to the select board and then,
Okay,
yeah, it can be.
I feel like we should maybe put that as a discussion for a future meeting, because I feel like that's a promising proposal. I don't know if we're ready to talk about it right now, and I feel like I'm not ready to think through, like, do we need all of these reps? Like, I hear you saying like that you don't find a lot of connection. And I'm like, but maybe we can make it happen.
Yes.
Right? Like, which, like, you can be like, no, shh. But I just don't think I'm in like the mental space to like have that. I haven't thought about it enough.
Yeah,
Plus,
so,
if we're still trying to define who we are, we don't wanna take on new people.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
add, clutter up that conversation
Right,
until the definition is defined.
100%.
so why don't we
Just not
continue to
ready.
work on this work plan? In upcoming meetings and get a better, we kind of have an idea of who we are, but the work plan is more, what do we do? How often do we need to do it? And then, that can feed into the conversation of who needs to be a part of this
Right.
and how often.
And maybe part of that could be like, hey, the people who are liaisons, what is your specific liaising? Right, like, I feel like I don't do a good job of being like, oh, Conservation Commission is thinking about invasives and we're thinking about invasives and our invasive plan should be nested in the broader, like I just made that up as an example and as I'm talking, I'm like, that's a great idea. Like,
Yep.
good job, Kim. Like, we could define that and then maybe we would feel a little less lost. The 3 of us that are,
That's a
or
good
the,
point.
Yeah.
Like, what's the committee's role and what are the
yeah,
representatives' roles in the committee, the topics?
yeah, almost the other way is you're representing the other direction from this committee that way, as opposed to that, your committee in, so.
yeah.
Interesting, or more emphasis on that.
Interesting.
Alright,
Okay,
budget.
Yes, so moving on. Review the plan for
All right.
2026 operations spending.
excellent. Okay, so I was doing a little bit of work on this, just thinking ahead this year because the end of the fiscal year comes fast. It's June
it June
30th,
30th?
right? And we also have more concrete information right now than last time we had this conversation. So I prepared this updated budget and planned expenditure sheet, and what I did is I changed it from the fiscal year to the actual year of operations. So you have the operating budget for fiscal year 26, all $3,000. There's operating budget for fiscal year 27, which it was proposed at 6,000. Select board had to make some tough decisions. It was approved at 4,000. So that's still a win for the committee.
That starts July 1.
That starts July 1. The stewardship fund is 53,871, I believe, because I just moved $15,000 from the capital to the stewardship. That was that ARPA invasives money that we worked with the Shirley, the town finance officer, to move from capital to stewardship for that purpose. So I haven't got confirmation that this is the balance, but that's my understanding is what it should be. Capital fund then is at 47,944, And other, I've confirmed that the folks who've been doing the emerald ash borer treatment every 2 years, they gain for another round. And I'll be coordinating with them for July. So we've estimated that 2,000. I don't know what it actually is, but I just put it in the spreadsheet.
It's like, well, I don't know, we just did it to our trees and it was a lot more than that, 2 of them.
I feel like
It
they
might
have
be.
been, I don't know, but they were doing it for free though.
They're doing it for free, yeah. So I put it in as if it was a grant. We don't know the actual number, but
But we should know, we should get a real estimate, because we can use it as in kind on things, right? Is it important for us to have
I don't know.
like an
Mhm.
actual estimate on it?
I don't know.
I
That's a
don't know
question for
why.
you.
It hadn't been before.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, so I'll try to keep this brief, but doing some projecting about priorities and timelines. So to spend, your goal, right, is to spend all of your fiscal year 26 budget. There's a couple things that are possibilities. First of all, you can jumpstart the invasive species management. You know, the sweet spot for doing invasive work, it's later in the season, but there are options for doing some early work potentially. So we could put that directly towards some invasive species management. And I've been doing some preliminary research about contractors who might be available to assist the town with that kind of work. In terms of miscellaneous, one thing that was identified was, you know, the Outdoor Family Center would appreciate if there was a new sign that could be placed at the hub that explains what volunteers are doing in the mud season when the trails might be closed, but you might still see volunteers poking around and looking at nest boxes or bird boxes. So assuming that can be put together in time, in informational signage, that would probably cost a couple $100. I just put 500 here as a placeholder. And then the sort of a decision to be made would be, you know, how are you going to spend the rest of that money? Of course, the Catamount Portalet cost share was something that you talked about, that you targeted for $1,500 a year. Because the budget for fiscal year 27 was approved at 4,000, you don't necessarily have that 1,500 every cycle. However, I did note that, you know, potentially on how you break it down, you could still reach that 1,500 this year if you took 1,000 from your fiscal year 26 budget and just said, we're gonna put this towards that cost share. And then you could take 500 from that fiscal year 27 budget, and that would be 1,500 for that year. So that sequence, you could still achieve that target, even if you can't hit that number every single year. So those are sort of, that's kind of the immediate thing on the table to discuss is how you might want to break down that money. I'll tell you what else I put in the spreadsheet was just a projection of what right now is going to be spent from the fiscal year 27 budget. Brush hogging was a potential for fiscal year 26, but I talked to Eric Lackey, who does the brush hogging, and spring is just a tough time to do it. It also makes the most ecological sense to do it in fall. So since last year we did it midsummer, I connected with Terry as well, who's been advising on this for years. We thought it made the most sense to just reset that for fall. So that would be 800 for a full day.
So we didn't pay for it last year? Or
We did. We paid it out of fiscal year
25?
25. It was right before the end of it was in June of that year. So,
That's
no,
of sorry, that's like up where the sumac is, right?
that'd probably be the next place
Yeah.
to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be 800, potentially 1,500. I just put from invasive species management. Fall would be the time to really go after that. And then that potentially 500. So that adds up to 2,800. There'd still be 1,200 left over for the spring for other tasks. So that's kind of a projection. And then noted for stewardship fund, that $3,000 should be paid out soon for the invasive species management plan. That's coming together into final draft territory. I was hoping to have that for you this week, but it's not quite ready. So Bob will have that to me within the next couple weeks, and you'll be able to look at it next time. And then $3,000 that is been approved for a couple of years to invest in invasive species implementation. So that can be drawn on immediately and combined with whatever you spend from fiscal year 27 to have kind of a robust, hit the ground running in the fall. The last thing I include on here, this is just that guess of what EAB treatment costs, and then $15,000. This right here is a guess of the conversation that's been had about matching funds for what it's costing to permit the trail upgrade project, right?
That's the type of thing that I was thinking, like, I feel like it's good to have accurate estimates of donated things, because it's like the kind of thing that you can be like, oh, this is an in kind, and you can use it as a match on future
Got it.
grant applications.
Oh, grant, okay. I understand.
Yeah,
I can ask.
but
I can get
I
that.
just think it's more than that. I just
It may
think
be.
it costs.
It's been going up pretty fast.
Yeah. And the bigger the tree, like.
So this number could be more like $20,000, but you have up to $35,000 available in capital that came from ARPA for trail projects. So that money can be put relatively quickly and efficiently towards matching those permit costs invested right into the phase one trail upgrades as soon as those permits are all done. So with all of that, the goal here is you don't have to review absolutely everything about budgets, but the main thing is I wanted to get the committee to kind of weigh in and confirm the plan for spending fiscal year 26 dollars. So that there's plenty of time to plan and execute that. We don't get caught at the very end of the season. So we only have one more meeting before then.
Yeah. I think it sounds like a good plan. We committed to the portalet cost share, so I think we did anyway. We talked about it in a way that felt like committing. So I feel like we should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we said, well, if we get it in the budget, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And then we did get it in the budget, but if we have the money, we should do it.
And then the invasive species management plan feels very important to me. We've been talking about it a lot, and I feel like the sign, like if people are confused about why they see other folks out there during mud season, that also seems like, and Catamount's asking for that, then that seems like a good.
Yeah, I can't imagine that'd be a $500 sign, but
It might
Yeah.
not be.
But maybe to Danielle's point, is there also some signage that's kind of missing out there about like, this is a public park, please come in and, you know, whatever the appropriate way of making sure you don't walk into a bike race or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that is valid. It's potentially a bigger conversation, designing that and what should go on it, but I think it makes sense to have that conversation at some point. In particular, the signage that is visible from the road, that kind of clarifies everything, because right now, the only signage that is on the road is the sign for the Catamount or family center.
Okay, so, well, it's a good plan because it's pretty, flexible, right? Because if we don't spend the signage, well, it costs $200 for the signage. Put it towards the portalets, and now you've got the money moved into your next year to put the sign up, so.
Yeah,
That's a good point,
So you
right?
can decide on the portalet money on June 29th if you wanted to, probably.
Right, if we can get the sign together in time,
Yeah,
and then you've made that $1,500 investment for the year.
right.
Because we really want to have the sign for next year at this point.
Yes, I mean, so where that came from, I think this was 2 years ago. There was a conversation in the committee, I looked back at some minutes about the confusion around mud season. And Reed Parker proposed a memo that said, you know, here's how we could handle this, and you know, we're gonna try to walk on the gravel trails first and foremost, and when we can't, we'll, you know, cross trails at 90 degrees, or we'll, you know, we can walk in the brush. It was some, you know, an attempt to make a compromise, and the committee approved that. And in it, one of the things it said was the committee will make some temporary signs that explain what's going on, and that kind of never ended up getting executed. So when I was reaching out to Andy and John and Amanda about this season and checking in, and he said, well, you know, it would be probably better than sandwich boards or temporary signs, just you know, a permanent sign that we can put out at that time of year
Yeah,
that says, you know, here's what's going on out here, it's great, and you might see people on the trails, trails are still closed
right.
to the general public.
Sounds good.
Unless we want to do a bigger sign that's more about volunteering, like how volunteers
Sure.
are there, and one of the examples is Netwell.
Would you like to volunteer? Here's a QR code.
Right.
Oh, accept that. There's a 38-page volunteer policy you have to read before you're like.
Just do it here. Page 16. Okay.
So the
Right, yeah,
1,500,
18.
the 1,500 for invasive species management is for work to be done in the fall, is that?
Well, I would propose that we jump in right away, and I've got two ideas for contractors that could potentially do some either manual work, or there are chemical applications that you can do that chemical application in the spring tends to be less effective, or at least that's the sort of prevailing wisdom. Because plants are drawing energy from their roots as opposed to putting it back to the roots. But there are treatments that, like basil bark treatment, that have efficacy in the spring, even if it's not as effective. And if we have the funds, and it's been discussed in this committee that this is really a priority, and that investment up front is gonna help things. My thought is jump in, if we don't have a better way to use that money, jump in and see if we can get someone out there to do some work right away.
Who did you ID and what do you think we would target?
One,
Or maybe we don't need to talk about specific contractors, I realize.
And where they're gonna do it?
But that one seems more like, what would we target?
so I think, if we went for manual removal, then I would think that I think I was gonna say parsnip, but I think it would be too early to really focus on parsnip, so
You think it would be too early?
it might be too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's too bad. That's what I was like, when you first said I was gonna say parsnip, I was like, me too, yes.
yeah.
That tends to bloom around July 4th.
Yeah, it's always.
Yeah.
That's like the-
Yeah, it might be,
my
but
perennial
we could potentially,
frustration. I'll
yeah.
burn today.
I gotta look into it a little more. I don't
Yeah,
have an
okay.
immediate plan, but that was kind of my thought is, you know, the goal has been to spend the funds that you have and not forfeit the funds. And that demonstrates that you're using your budget. And we talked about last budget season, how it's a goal for this season, because it's been underutilized in the past, just for many reasons. So that was my thought is, we'll have that plan. It identifies the priority areas, and we could get some preliminary work done.
So are we just voting on spending and then we will specify specifics, delineate specifics at the next meeting?
Well, we could, but on the other hand, that money's gotta be spent by June 30th, and our
Yeah.
next meeting will be June 15th or something, so I don't know what this, but,
But we could be like, yes, on these categories, and then not to give you a bunch of work, but you could come to the next meeting, like, I identified this person to do
Yeah.
this pulling and like this sign, and it's gonna be designed like this, all in favor.
and I'm okay if we just said. David knows, we've talked about the sign, and he knows that we're trying to get rid of invasives, and I'm perfectly fine with delegating that to him.
I guess I'm asking you, is that what you're, is that like a reasonable amount of work? Or are you like, I actually don't have time to, if someone was like, here, Kim, you have these 3 new tasks, I'd be like.
Yeah, well, I mean, capacity, I'm always fighting against capacity, but you know, do my best. I guess what I was looking for today was a nod from the committee that, yes, this is, you know, these are the buckets, and you haven't identified any other buckets for those funds, so I can move forward and do what I can. I know, you know,
Yes.
pulling together the design for a sign and getting it ordered, it's possible that could fall down the priority list and not happen.
But you know, you could swap the 500 with the
Yeah,
other.
But exactly, right, but we
Yeah.
could swap it with that,
Do the whole
Yeah.
quarter, 26 budget, do the signs in 27 budget.
Right.
if you need to.
and then.
Yeah.
I would just,
like it overall, I would say thumbs up.
I would just say, as far as the invasives are concerned, just make sure that we're not. The honeysuckle, the rose and the buckthorn, in my experience, I'm trying to get rid of that in my own property and I've been doing it 10 years. If you do it in the spring, it comes back. And so that would be, oh, in my opinion, a waste of
Want to
money.
do it in the spring, is there?
No, you don't want to do it in the spring. For those,
Whatever they call it, it hasn't come back
You should.
in the
Yeah.
spring. I don't know.
so if you can identify something that, makes sense to do it at this point in
barberry?
the year, then that would be great.
What's the bar, is that the rose, what's the rose, barber?
Multiflora rose turns into these
Mhm.
massive, like, they're
There's
pretty,
like-
but
there's
I
like
mean,
these
they
pricker
have these
bushes.
thick thorns.
What are the pricker things that you can't quite pull out?
Barberry,
Yeah. Can you do those in the spring?
foliar spray,
Yeah,
potentially.
I hate those more than all the other things we're talking about, the other things seem easier to deal with.
You know, my like
Spray.
ridiculous admission is that I really like the way honeysuckle smells.
That is, it's not ridiculous, it's okay, and not
They all
all
have
have
some
beautiful
value.
plants.
That's right, that's
Yeah,
right.
like, that's why they're
That's
here.
why they're here.
I'm always like, oh man, the woods smell really nice at night when they're in bloom.
Yeah.
If you like walk your dog at night.
So I would just, in my opinion, have a conversation about what makes sense and
Right,
make
Yeah.
sure we're not.
not just
Good
throwing
point.
money away.
Good experience.
Yeah.
What if you bring in the experience?
And maybe, yeah, there's always the
Danielle-
passes and scholarships that we could throw some money into this year to
That's
save,
true.
Mm.
instead of kill plants that are gonna come back stronger because we killed them the wrong time of year.
That's what
I had to approve.
sounds like a
to-
rec committee thing.
See?
I like.
I had to approve 2 internships for UVM students that are with the rec department. And I have no idea, I love that I'm like, oh, I approved their internships and I have no idea what they're doing. But I'm wondering if there's like an interpretation angle to either of if you might not know this. Or maybe we could ask Todd and they could work on the sign, I don't know when they start or if that fits in with their.
I mean, I love that, if it gets it off my plate, it's gonna. I
Those
can't say
thinking
nothing.
that interp is very much part of that. I don't know, I could look at what they say, but maybe ask Todd if that's a possibility.
Right, and it also sounds like the time that it would take to tell them to bring them up to speed on what the sign would need might just. You might get this, you might be able
You
to
might
just make that.
Get it,
Yeah, you might be able to do it faster.
alright. Okay,
I
Alright.
don't know.
Other way, now I don't know.
Did we decide that we're okay with David making,
I have no.
making decisions about the
Yeah.
$1,500 of invasive species management, if you must, if there's no
Yeah.
reason you wanna bring it back to us, we can, but.
if I don't identify what seems like a good option, I will not spend the money.
Mhm.
Or I'll come back to you.
And then where does that 1,500 go if not?
Well, then your options would be, right, what can you do in the short term? Last year, we used funds to replace some damaged beams for Catamount that were part of their shoot. John, are you still here?
Bridges or something, beams?
Yeah, the railroad ties that were rotted out. When the brush hogging, yeah, on the cyclocross trail,
Oh,
the
yeah.
brush hogger disturbed them.
Oh, the horse jumps.
But they were kind of already rotting out, so it was a nice synergy, and we said, hey, we'll fix those for you, so.
Yeah,
There may be some,
They
little
were
projects
rideable
like that,
before.
we fixed the door on the sheep barn. So there could be some small projects that we could put it towards,
Mm.
and last year Amanda had the idea of, passes or scholarships for COFC.
Oh, so that's where that 1,500 would go. Make
John
sure
is
it's
here.
Yeah, so.
What does John think? What do you, 1,500 if not invasives, where would you suggest spending?
I mean, are you saying instead of invasives? Because I do support invasive treatment if
No, it was it.
If we weren't able to pull together invasive treatment option in time, the goal is to not let those funds be forfeited. So, last year we were able to, you remember, Andy and I worked together kind of at like the last second in June to replace the sheep barn door and the. Keep forgetting cyclocross, railroad ties.
Right.
So are there small projects like that that are, could potentially be accomplished?
As a backup, as the
Yeah, as a
default is
backup.
spend it on evasives, but if something goes wrong, is there a backup way so we don't lose our $1,500?
I can't think of anything that we have permits for and can say we could put it towards right now. But I do, we'd certainly appreciate the support for the porta potties. That's direct dollars, and scholarship is a great way to support the community. And but I think those two are the only ones that we really have right now that we can plan on.
That sounds good.
Just because it's a lot of money, this whole capital, the $15,000, I know we haven't really settled on that because we don't have a total yet. But
We don't have a
so
total yet.
we're sort of approving the 26, 27 and budget, stewardship budget kind of stuff. We're not saying like, yes. 15
Yeah,
is the
you're
number.
not saying
Right.
all
Yeah.
of this is set in stone. This
Right.
is just for your information, kind of like mapped out what's on the horizon and talked about.
Right.
Um,
And you can write our guy who did the management plan for us, 2 checks, one from FY 26, one from FY 27. One from the operating budget and one from the
It's an
stewardship
interesting
fund.
idea.
The stewardship fund doesn't have any deadlines, that you have to give the money back.
That's,
I
That's an
really,
idea.
I like the
That's why we have a
scholarships.
select board on the committee.
I do too.
you like the scholarship.
Yeah, I think, that supports our mandate to sort of bring the community into the forest and get them engaged. So we've already got something in there for the portalets, and so that would sort of be a well-rounded way to use some of that money.
I could even
agree.
fund like one of the classes, like, could it fund like a classroom visit? Or whatever they need, like. I
Yeah, like
also
the
think,
snow school. like the
yes, snow school that's local, or there's, the Catamount has passes at the library, we could check to see if they're used, if they're always checked out, we could
Buy another
get
one.
another pass for one at the library.
So I think those are great ideas. I'd say maybe just looking at time, we still got some important conversations to kick off. So maybe think about those ideas and I can give you an update at the next meeting on that.
Those invasives. Great.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
All right, Catamount Outdoor Family Center Building Proposal. Next on the agenda.
All right. So I can preface this and Jean may have some comments as well, so. The working group with Outdoor Family Center and town has been moving right along, going really well, I think. And after securing the preliminary approvals of the federal grant programs, it's clear that a building can go on site. But there were, I think I provided an update, I'm trying to recall, just think back to last time, provide a little bit of an update. We know that Land and Water Conservation Fund has some rules about how that building can be used with regards to accessory events that are not recreation, education. Specifically things like weddings and celebrations. So they have some guidelines that they've sent us and, the building 25% of the time that the building is open, can potentially be used towards those. We have to kind of sort through those from that angle. But it potentially opens up quite a bit of time that could be available for accessory events. So it really, where it brings the conversation is, it's time for the committee to really weigh in on, based on the management plan, the community forest plan for this forest, and the vision for how this forest is intended to be used. What is the committee's input on how frequent accessory events should occur? Ultimately, one of the main next steps for this building project is the town and Catamount will need a use agreement for how the building is used. That use agreement is gonna have to be sent or a version of it, and a rough draft of it is gonna have to be sent to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So that they can give the final sign off and they say, okay, here's how you're gonna use the plan. We see that you're not using it more than 25% for these other events, its primary functions rec, great, here's your final sign off. But we know that, the committee is gonna have, especially Jean thought it was very important for the committee to have input on this, and I agree. Based on your purview and in your role, providing oversight on policy about how things should, what should happen with the forest and when and how.
When, when this agreement comes to the select board, we're gonna say, what's the committee think?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do they-
Yeah, I'm sorry,
do they
just to be clear, we're not asking you guys to say like, well, I think 20 hours of, yeah, we're at this meeting, it's just sort of we need to talk about it, so.
Do they say how they measure 25%?
Not exactly,
Like,
so.
like
we-
in an 8-hour day, you could have a 2-hour wedding every single day.
Right,
I'm not
it's
saying
it's
you
a
would,
little unclear.
But if
Yeah.
that's the math,
Well, the way I interpreted it
Actually-
was like, unless they really have wonky math, then 25% is something that's far beyond what.
That's what
the
I was
Family
thinking.
Center or us is at all
Seriously, right.
interested in, so it's almost like saying they don't have a limit, it's the limit, the upper limit's going to be. The town's, meaning this committee's decision
Yeah.
on what is too much.
Right,
Now, the Outdoor Family Center is gonna also have a number that says, in order to support this building, I need this much, so you can't say
But
none,
also
but.
like the general public, like people are like gonna wanna get married on one of 3 days.
Well, it's
Right,
right, it's
in
like,
like a
yeah,
short, in like a. No one's gonna be like, oh,
right,
John, I want Monday evening in
Yeah.
darkest
so it's
February.
like 25% of
I don't know,
the
maybe some
year
people-
as a whole, or 25% of every given week?
well, I think Jean said it best, yeah, I don't know how well I
I see,
prefaced that. But I think that the point of the matter is functionally, the proposal is expected to pass, right? We can build a building on site that has the
Mm.
specs that were designed, more or less, obviously, that's gotta go through town permitting, some small things may change, but in terms of the approval process. You know, the VLT is gonna sign on if the town is on board, if the federal programs are on board, and that's our expectation, so we know the building can go on site. And we have every reason right now to believe that these accessory uses, including weddings, which we've been given explicit permission for
Mhm.
by the federal programs, are allowed. So now it's time for the committee to kind of step in and say, well, we don't want this to be a wedding center. We don't want weddings for 2 hours every day.
Yeah,
What we do think is the right balance
Oh, wedding
is,
center.
right?
What did what's the? From the was it the TAP, or what's the
The
limit of
TEP.
the events already?
So right now, the process for governing accessory events that are beyond, recreation and anything that is approved or sort of a zoned use for the agricultural rural residential district is the TEP process. And essentially that's a temporary zoning permit that says, hey, I'm allowed to have a wedding, or, big celebration, gathering, whatever, at my property, whatever. And you can have 12 of those a year. Catamount has to split those, taking into balance all of the different interests that third parties have right now between 12 events. But why it's important for you to not just default to that is one of the tools that the town has for working with Catamount once this building is up is to amend the zoning, to bring additional options on board for regular things that can happen at Catamount.
yeah,
It's a conversation that has to be had, but there's precedent for it. An example is if you have a restored barn structure in Williston right now, there are privileges that come with that. And if you look at all the different events that happen at Isham Farm, for
Yeah.
example, that's the reason all of those different events, weddings and summer theater, can happen is because there's this restored barn structure on site. And the way the zoning was written, that gives you access to having a banquet hall and doing things like that. So the TEP shouldn't be seen as the default that's gonna, say, okay, no matter what, you can only have 12 things a year. In fact, it would make the most sense to get beyond that to a clear vision of,
mm-hmm,
what do you think the balance should be on the property.
I was just trying to pull up weddings on Vermont A&R to see like what are how does other public land function in this space, but it just says weddings on their page and then subscribe to weddings, and if you click the box, it goes to like a bunch of code. But that's all to say, I feel like we could look at other models of like, how does public land fill this? I feel like it's a public service and that, right, like churches provide it, how does public land function in the state in this regard? Differently than like, I don't know, like a private, like the snowflake or whatever, right? I think it's a different
Has anybody
niche.
asked to get married on Five Tree Hill?
I'm sure someone has gotten married on Five Tree Hill and just not
But
asked,
there's no building there,
There's no building.
right?
Yeah.
So weddings is just one aspect of this, right? Like, we're talking, I mean, like, thinking more broadly, and is this a discussion we wanna have, like, if there's a building, does the rec department have? Like,
Yeah, like after school.
percentage of
like,
time?
blah, blah, blah.
I mean, the outdoor family center should slot in like, but I don't know, like, is the outdoor family center gonna fill up 50% of daylight hours in this building? Then there's a whole nother 50%, like, does the rec department want some slots and weddings get some other type of events, get some allocation?
John unmuted.
So I just want to jump in.
I
real
think
quick.
he has
So
something to say.
I don't know if, based on the Land and Water Conservation Fund rules, you can pre-reserve chunks of time for that. I don't know if you can say, well, this many hours a year only goes to here, this many hours a year.
I
only
was
goes to
thinking
there.
for like modeling purposes, like,
Yeah.
we wouldn't pre-reserve it, but like, we need a mental model
Yeah,
cause to Gene's point, like, the 25% is like, we'll be hard pressed to find 25%
I don't think we want to.
of stuff to fill the place up.
right.
So how do we wanna, how do we want the place filled up? I don't wanna suggest that the new building will be anything like the old lodge, but the old lodge, is unusable, but, it does just mostly sit there, except for it thunderstorms and kids run in there for camps and bike storage and office space. But I think we'll be hard pressed to like keep this building beyond 50%.
Well, it used to be
Used.
birthdays, right?
What's that?
People used to use it for birthdays.
Oh, really? I definitely had one of my kids' birthdays at Catamount without requesting the ability to do so.
Oh,
and I know, well, I like afterwards was like, oh, I'm sorry, but it wasn't in a space, it was just outside.
So I mean, the general, in the framework that we've been given from Land and Water Conservation Fund, the access to reserving these kinds of
Yeah.
spaces and events has to be equal. So, any member of the community has to be able to reach out and say, I'd like to get married at Catamount, or, I'd like to book this space that's available to be booked, for a birthday or my, corporate event or whatever.
But you could say like, I'm sorry, we already have 10 weddings this summer and our town plan says we can only do 10 weddings.
Yeah,
You're number
absolutely
11.
do that.
You can be on the wait list, but sorry, so we can like cap
Yeah.
things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we're asking,
Uh-huh.
because we're not gonna get capped by the TEP, we're not gonna get capped by the land and water folks, and so it's kind of. Our job, as I see it, to make sure that in the use agreement, there's. An upper bound, it could be 25% and we don't care, but it could also be, I mean, you talk about that many weddings, but. You're not gonna have weddings all year round, to your point, so do
Right.
do we wanna have 3 weddings a weekend, and I know the outdoor family center doesn't either. So some of this is like that term, sleeve
Theoretically.
off our vest, right, we're gonna say like, you can't have more than 27 weddings, well, they don't want 27 weddings, so it's easy, but
Yeah,
but I think there's a vision, it's a forest. It's not supposed to be a wedding venue, and so,
what, so. I like to keep things in context. Our first goal is to have a document that we send to these people. For them to agree to, and then we'll be bound by it, obviously, after that.
who people?
I don't know, do we have to send
Land
a
and Water
document?
Conservation Fund.
Yeah, we have to send this. We have to write a document that we send to land and water, land and whatever, And then they're gonna be looking for some particular things, and maybe it's just the 25% threshold. And then after they approve it, then we have to stick with what we wrote. We can't like just do whatever we want.
So
obviously.
but because of that, I would reframe it. The first task is to have an internal agreement that works for the town, works for Catamount.
Uh-huh.
And that's the first and it doesn't have to. Gene has made a really good point in the working group meetings that what needs to be decided right now is not the mechanisms for how spaces can be reserved or which, specific
Yeah,
times of day or anything like that. But the outline of the plan about how the space will be used should be decided in the mutual terms to the satisfaction of all parties now, and then that can be sent to Land and Water Conservation Fund. It can be sent to VLT, and it'll form the basis for the legal agreement ultimately between the town and Catamount.
what's all on the table, like yoga, like Monday morning yoga session.
That doesn't feel like it's as much on the table as the wedding. I think that like, I'm trying to think of it as just a regular user. And it's getting into the parking lot, and I think that a yoga class isn't going to fill up the parking lot. But when I used to try to go to Catamount and just drive up the road and see all the cars on the side of the road, then on race days, I would say, I think I need to go somewhere else today. So I feel like as somebody who would be driving up there and say, oh, what, there's a wedding. I'm trying to weigh
Well, we're
how many
trying to-
times can I try to approach Catamount and see, oh, it's a wedding without thinking.
Yeah,
What is going on at Catamount that they're having
I
weddings
get
all the
it,
time?
but I
I
think-
can't.
I think
figure
you're
that out in my
focusing
head.
in on like, if we have to like characterize how this building will be in use in totality. You're focusing in on I'll say like the highly invasive events that kind of disrupt regular users. And like, we definitely wanna put lots of attention
Mhm.
in this plan to be comfortable with how many of those fully disruptive, I don't know, fully disruptive, these like moderately noticeable events. But I do think it's in our scope to say whether or not we would intend to have Monday morning yoga, or is it not? Like
I
how
mean, I think the use could,
comprehensive?
I mean, the use could say something really general and it's off the top of my head, but it could be. Well, actually, the one thing that I'm kind of stumbling on is like, what's to stop somebody from walking into this beautiful building and having a yoga session, right? But, the building's not closed, right? It's an open public building, so.
Is it gonna be like the library because Parks and Rec buildings are rented? So those, they have to pay for that
If
space.
you reserve a time.
I don't think I think it's locked. I don't think it's an open space for people to hang out in.
Well,
Well,
this is,
so-
right?
so
Is this a
public-
space to hang out in? For the
Well,
public?
if you go
Yeah.
for a walk, yeah.
So
Has
the
to be.
building does not have to be open at all times of the day by any means. Catamount Outdoor Family Center is staffing it. The primary purpose of the building is to support public outdoor recreation. The vehicle for doing that is supporting Catamount existing. So they have their office spaces there, their
Yeah.
rental, the hub, is space for their camps. But the building also has to be accessible to the public. Pretty much at all times that it's open. So all of its regular operating hours, and if it's opened on, outside of its regular operating hours, somebody should still be able to come in, use the restroom facilities, that kind of thing, like get out of the cold, whatever. That's the framework they're kind of working in that, but it does sound like it's reasonable for somebody to, oh, we've, booked the majority of this space for this event.
No, and I think, but it's not gonna get, I don't know, my thought was something like it. Even having a use restrictions that could be events of over 50 people are, no more than, whatever, we put some restrictions on it and under that. Just have to meet the 25% thing.
Are we talking about
part of
catering
the,
and? What do we mean by weddings? I'm
Yeah,
not even clear on
catering.
that.
Yeah.
Is there alcohol? Is there, I mean, there's so many
I
questions.
think we could spend the entire night talking about weddings, maybe we have
Yeah.
a focused wedding discussion and move on to other. just
Well,
understanding what.
next item on the agenda is ticks. so-
Let's go, John,
We are
the
not
other
gonna get
uses,
protection.
we have a lot to talk about for uses, how do we think this, we spend the time, like weddings is endless discussion.
John,
So, as part of our business and building plan that we need to produce for the town and for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, I'm working on a spreadsheet and a calendar that would basically, give a real overview of how we envision the space being used when it's open, who's in it, how many times per year, how many people might be in that space, how much is left for public, all of those things. So I I think you guys could spend a lot of time worrying about the what ifs and the how does this manage it, but I think that this plan really will provide a great jumping off point, so you don't have to necessarily invent all the possibilities. We're going to invent those for you, and then if we miss something or whatever, you can put that in. But we do envision a variety of things hosted by a variety of community organizations. So if we merely put in what we do now and then some multipliers, even that's a great spot to jump off from. We have plenty of events that we host that we would want to be in this space. So whether it's the weekly race series or the 5K events we're talking about, how many people is that? How many times per year? We're gonna put that in, and then some level of multiplication because the space is bigger and more appropriate. So I would say that, like, wait for us to send this and then beat it up. Like, don't expect that this is what we present needs to happen, but it's going to be a good window into what we're talking about without having to get into all the particulars in a meeting like this.
And that's great, I think that's super helpful, because I know you guys
Yeah,
put a lot of thought to it, and Amanda
that makes
has
sense.
too, but. We've sketched, David was kind of sketching out a timeline so we can, not hold. The Outdoor Family Center up from starting their fundraising for this building, and. We will likely see this in next month and have to just decide to approve it or not next month. In June, right? The draft building use and operating plan.
I wouldn't say that timeline is definite, and
Yeah, that sounds a
I
little
would expect
fast.
you would have you wouldn't have to see it and approve it all in one meeting. That seems rushed.
Well, we definitely should see it ahead of the meeting if we're gonna have to have it.
Right.
Have it.
I mean, I think we talked at the last board group, we talked about, we would take the kind of provisional plan that we had and think through these timelines based on meeting, when groups are meeting and,
But you have a select board, approval in August, so we can't take too much longer to.
well, but some of those might be inaccurate, and, we know that this is a long haul process for a long-term solution, so we can, the speed ends up being the speed. We can try to move things as quickly as possible, but there's some components that may just need.
If this is it's a big important project, I'd also wanna take 3 months talking about weddings, so we
Right.
should, we should
Yeah.
really we could get it a week, if we could get the draft building plan a week ahead, at least something that we can. Has enough detail for us to have an intelligent discussion about,
Yeah,
give them some direction, and I think that's fine, because then, we can always have the conversation. And run the select board when they review it to say,
Right.
we're not comfortable with this section, or whatever, but. It is gonna be a short turnaround, I hope, because. It's already a long timeline before this building's going up, so we need to get started raising money.
yeah, thanks, John, I think that's a really good plan, and I appreciate you, providing that. Insight for the committee.
We have 1 minute to talk about ticks.
Elevator pitch.
I mean, whenever the next management plan is up, I saw somebody talking about ticks and whether or not there's too many deer, and then somebody else saying the number of ticks has nothing to do with the number of deer. So it got kind of confused in my thinking, but I just thought, like, the chatter I was seeing earlier in the spring was lots of ticks related to deer, and deer's been a topic that I thought. You know, if we don't want ticks, we want kids to be in the woods and being at camps and not overrun by ticks, should we think about dealing with the deer if that, and again, I'm not an expert, so like the causality there or correlation, you know, if we had an expert advise us, then that could be at least some motivation to reconsider some limited amount of hunting to control the deer.
I think there's two things in there. They're not completely unrelated, and also the bigger pressure is climate change. So hunting.
Okay, let's fix that instead.
Yeah.
Oh, for driving more ticks, cause it's
Yeah.
warmer, yeah.
Yeah. We could get guinea hens and release them to habitat. That would be, or possum,
Right.
make like
Well,
possum
good.
habitat.
Solar panels on
Yeah,
every
sure.
single open field, but
I have been trying, I hope Ben is watching this at home, I'm sure he's not, but I've been trying to get my husband to let me get guinea hens, and this is my like.
Do they
for
eat
years,
ticks?
They love
Yeah,
ticks,
they're
they-
apparently really good.
Yeah, but they're also like really annoying. So so he says no,
I do think that, I mean, I don't know where people are getting the ticks.
everywhere.
So my thought is that a lot of
Yeah.
the small brush that's on the side of the trails is that invasive stuff that we're trying to get rid of, and maybe when we get rid of that, it might be pushing the ticks farther away from where people are getting them. I may be wrong, I mean, I, like I said, I don't really know where they're
I
getting
think,
ticks. I
yeah,
haven't had a problem with them with my nest watch duties in the tall grass for some reason.
I think to Kim's point, managing ticks at a forest-wide scale on 400 acres may be something that is just out of your control.
I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about it.
But yeah, right, having said that, I think, you know, ticks may have been the catalyst. I do think the conversation around deer hunting is a ripe one in relation to the updated management plan. And
Agreed.
I have heard that brought forward
Agreed.
from a number of individuals, including the McCulloughs, who
Mhm.
believe that it should be happening on site. You know, probably with bows and not rifles, but
Yeah, I
So
agree, I think it's
you
important
should-
forest management.
you should have that conversation, and I like the idea of bringing that experts potentially to guys too.
I agree, it was very hard to resolve the hunting concerns of the neighbors when we wrote the
Yeah.
management plan for the first time. I firmly feel that allowing hunting is important forest management. I also think ticks and Lyme disease and other forms of tick-borne illness are a huge problem, but it is very connected to climate change.
Can we ask,
We're also eating up little baby trees though.
Yeah, that's like my
Yeah.
bigger thing is like, there are just too many deer, period,
Right.
and their population is not healthy and the forest is not healthy, and.
can we ask the guy who's creating the invasive management plan to weigh in on this? To see, no,
On
He's like,
species.
he's totally herbaceous,
invasive.
right?
I think it's not,
I mean, I'm not saying he should treat it, like spray or do anything like that, but. Like I was saying, if we eliminate those invasive species that are along the sides of the trails, is that likely to push the ticks farther into the woods?
They do like duff, like they are in like that, like leaf littery material. A thing you can do is, like. One of the ways that they spread Lyme disease is that you can like, it's like the vector is rodents, you can like soak like dryer lint in permethrin and like put it in the PVC pipes, and the mice will like bring it back to their nests, and then. It's not great, it's a thing you can do.
no,
I mean, like, there are things you can do, but I think to your point is like. Probably a lot of what we could do is educate the public about. Like doing daily tick checks and like thinking about permethrin soap clothes,
Can put that on the sign.
but not getting it on your skin, because that's not
It's
great.
a busy side. We have a lot of things.
Okay, well, thanks for getting that.
Yeah.
Over time. We can now cross it off for next month.
well, yeah, we'll bring it back as its own thing with some,
Yeah.
reaching out for.
There are people doing like tick research at
Yeah.
UVM, so we can totally invite people.
I'm not opposed to this, I'm also kind of wondering, we have a lot of work to get through, and I'm not sure that I would put that super high on this year's work plan personally, because I think it might be a thing that has to feed into the rewrite.
Yeah, when the management, I don't even
Yeah.
know when the management plan rewrite is, I just was thinking ahead to whenever it is.
2028, which means
Okay,
gotta get started now.
she's like, oh,
Fiscal
well,
year
I'm gonna be on this
27.
committee with that.
And Drew, I didn't mean to suggest that it wasn't a good idea to reach out and ask that question. I just meant that I think that the capacity of of Bob, who's working on the invasive plan, is kind of maxed out for that project, and we're just trying to get it.
Finish it.
Finish it.
Get the plan
Don't
finished.
expand scope.
Also, I think he doesn't do, he
Yeah.
doesn't do
Bugs.
bug, yeah. I think
Yeah, I don't think he
does
does, right, oh, right, he just does, well, he does woody species too.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
Vegetation.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just texted someone to say that I think is doing TIG recreation stuff.
Okay,
All right,
Motion to adjourn,
second,
move.
all
Second.
those in favor?
third.
Bye.
Hi, all right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Me.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John, Tia.
I'm gonna email you a link to Google Doc.